Welcome back. As we mentioned, President Trump met with his advisors today to make a, quote, final determination on a potential deal with Iran. But so far, no deal has been announced. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Adam Smith of Washington. He's also the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's not entirely clear what the final sticking points are of this short-term deal that's under discussion. But let me ask you, would you support a deal that reopens the Strait of Hormuz but does not directly address Iran's nuclear program?
At this point, I would. And I know that people like to say, well, gosh, that's unacceptable. We have to. Iran has to give up their nuclear weapons. I take a more practical approach on this. How are we going to do that exactly? What level of force are we going to imply that's going to require Iran to make that decision? Now, look, if the president can negotiate a deal that has them more directly address the nuclear program, that would certainly be better. But that's why this war was so stupid in the first place. It has not advanced our interests. It's come at enormous cost. And everyone knew up front that if Iran perceived an existential threat, which this war would be, that they're just going to survive and dig in. And they're actually more hardline now than when this thing started. So, yeah, President Trump starting this war has put us in an awful, awful position. We still have to make the best choice out of a bad series of options.
Well, following up on that point, the president said this week during his cabinet meeting, if there's no deal, he will, quote, finish the job, the assumption being that he would resume military operations. Do you agree with that strategy, Congressman, if he can't reach a deal?
This is what I really want to drill. Yeah, this is what I want to drill down on, because I've heard variations of that same sort of, to my mind, stupid assessment. You know, people say, oh, Trump, don't quit now. You got to finish the job. We have to. What does that mean? Okay. And how is it going to be achieved? I mean, it sounds good. Sure. You know, it's like finish the job. You're running a marathon, just run the last mile. But here, what are we going to do that's going to force Iran to give us what we want? And keep in mind, the job, broadly speaking, on this is no nukes, no support for terrorist organizations in the region, no ballistic missile program. Okay? How are you going to force Iran to do that? In this perception that somehow if we simply apply enough force for long enough, we will get that result. We have countless examples where that just isn't true, and this is one of them. So I'm worried that what he's going to do is going to bomb for another 4 weeks. We're going to send in ground troops. We're going to try to drop bigger bombs. What's going to force Iran to allow us to, quote, finish the job? Meanwhile, the cost of continuing the conflict is really high. The global economy, certainly, and our economy here locally, not to mention the Middle East and the chaos that is there.
Let me ask you about this debate over the War Powers Resolution. The House set to vote on the War Powers Resolution when you all come back from recess. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise saying the vote was delayed to allow lawmakers who were absent to participate. But I'm wondering what you're hearing behind the scenes from your Republican colleagues. Are you getting the sense that more of them are migrating to wanting there to be congressional oversight of this war? Is the president losing support amongst rank-and-file Republicans?
He's losing support in the country at a staggering clip, as we have seen. But the short answer to your question is no. I've seen no evidence that the Republican Congress are going to respond to their constituents. They're going to keep responding to Donald Trump. Now, I could be wrong. You know, obviously I don't talk with every single House Republican, but I haven't seen or heard anything that, you know, shows that they're going to change their mind and actually side with the public on wanting to end this war.
Let me shift gears now, ask you about what happened overnight in Europe. A Russian drone hit a residential building in neighboring Romania, NATO condemning it. I was just discussing this with Richard Engel. Do you think the response from NATO is strong enough? Does there need to be a stronger response? Are you learning anything about whether this was a targeted attack or a mistake that was aimed initially at Kyiv?
Yeah, we don't know yet. We do know that Russia has stepped up in the last couple of years their gray zone activity against European nations that are backing Ukraine. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least bit if, you know, Russia wants to say, oh, sorry, act like it was an accident, but really be trying to send a message. I think it's incredibly important that we engage in diplomacy right now. Ukraine has stood up and bravely fought back against Russia and held on, more than held on. Basically, they brought Russia to a standstill. But there is considerable risk right now of this war escalating. And if Russia does get more aggressive towards NATO countries, there's an obligation to respond. So, I think we need more diplomacy. It doesn't seem like the Trump administration has any ability whatsoever to engage in that diplomacy. So maybe Europe needs to step up and start having those conversations as well. But we need to calm things down so that this war doesn't dramatically expand in Europe.
I do want to turn to some other big news this week on the domestic policy front. Former First Lady Jill Biden saying she thought President Biden was having a stroke during that disastrous debate performance. She said she was afraid. Of course, we know that in the moments after that debate, she went out to a rally, said she thought he'd done a great job. I'm curious, Congressman, what do you make of the response and these new revelations by the First Lady?
Yeah, I've found the whole thing appalling for a very long time. I mean, it was just such a colossal blunder for Joe Biden to ever think that he could run for a second term. He had the opportunity to be a bridge, which is what he said he was going to be. He was very clearly not physically up to running another campaign. And Jill Biden, his family, his inner circle, I mean, they did this country and certainly the Democratic Party a grave disservice by allowing this to go forward. I think it was completely obvious that President Biden wasn't up for this campaign, and it's not particularly helpful at this point for Jill Biden to say, on the one hand, I thought he was having a stroke. On the other hand, I didn't see any evidence of cognitive decline. Thinking a guy's having a stroke at a national debate stage sort of checks that box of evidence of mental decline. And I do wish they'd shown more leadership and gotten him to just never run for the second term. Had a competitive democratic process, I think we would have been a lot better off. I don't think it's particularly helpful to be dredging it back up at this point. I mean, everyone's got a book to sell. We got to move forward as a party and hopefully learn a hard lesson from that experience.
Well, on that point of moving forward after the 2024 elections, you posted a video on social media. You said that the Democratic Party brand is broken and we desperately need to fix it if the party's ever going to have any hope of appealing to a majority of people in this country. So let me ask you, Congressman, we're about 6 months away from the next elections. Do you believe that Democrats have fixed their brand?
No. I do think we've done a really effective job of attacking Trump's horrific policies. We've built a lot of support. We're well positioned for 2026 in the congressional elections. We got a lot of good candidates who are driving a message. What I worry about is 2028. We need a coalition that is large enough and cohesive enough to win back the White House. And right now there are deep divisions within the party. My personal summary, I mean, first of all, to go back to the Joe Biden thing, I think the damage that did to us has not been fully reckoned with. I think we should understand we can't afford to let that type of thing happen. But then, we don't have as clear an economic plan as we should. Number one biggest issue, economic inequality. Too few have too much, too many are struggling to get by. And I'm very much an economic populist on that issue. But on the other hand, we also had some policies that were, I guess, best described as too far left on border security, on, abolish the police, criminal justice issues, even on government spending. We spent a lot of money, and some on the left advocated the theory that deficits and debts don't matter. I think that undermined our credibility. We're dodging all of these issues. You saw it in the autopsy report from the DNC that absurdly talked about social media and how we need to get better at it. Sure, but what we really need to do is have a conversation within our large family about the possibility of there's bitter differences. And pretending like those differences don't exist isn't going to change what's going to happen come 2028. I think we can build a coalition. I think economic populism combined with accountability, responsibility, building a strong country. I think there's a lot of things we can do. We're going to need to have that conversation to get us in a stronger position for 2028.
All right. Congressman Adam Smith, always appreciate your perspective. Thanks so much for being here on this Friday.
Thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.